Can I come in?
I guess I'll have to invite you in if we want to talk about these two movies, huh?
That's how it's gonna have to work.
Okay, here we are, Refried Scenes. I'm Carol.
I'm Mia.
And we are talking about Let the Right One In.
And Let Me In.
Aha, so this is
the film.
The film.
Not
I may bring up something from the book.
Right, and neither of us have seen the television series.
No, so this is not the television series, which I don't know if they use any of the characters from the...
I really don't know. I don't know anything
I'm curious
about it.
now, because I had no idea there was a TV series until I looked up information about these two movies, and then I was like, wait a minute.
I will watch it.
Yeah.
I just haven't begun
it's only
to watch
like
it.
one season, and then they canceled it. So I am curious to see if they bring any of the characters from these films, and, well, I mean, they changed the characters for the American, but we are going to start with the Swedish film.
Yes, we're going to start with this Swedish film, Let the Right One In.
Same title as the book.
And so I'll go through the synopsis here. It starts off with Oscar, our main character of the movie. And he's a 12-year-old boy, and he's getting bullied at school.
Viciously bullied.
I mean, it's adorable. He's, like, working out with a barbell that's, like...
He's trying.
He's trying. Bless his heart. Bless his heart. He does not want to be bullied anymore, but he doesn't really know what to do to stop it. And then he notices Ellie moves into the apartment complex. Ellie is a person that looks similar to him in age, and moves in with an older man in the apartment complex.
Yeah.
And Ellie tells Oscar that they can't be friends, but they soon start like a Morse code sort of communication.
Yeah, because she lives in the apartment next door to him, so they can knock on the wall.
And we see some people... Well, we see Haken, who's the older man that lives with Ellie in the woods.
Well, he like fills his toolkit up and then leaves the apartment, and he's like, I don't know if it's a bus stop. It is like a Totoro bus stop. It is in the middle of the woods. It's a cat bus stop.
Yeah,
I don't know how anything's getting there.
I haven't been to Sweden, but there's a lot in this movie that you're not quite sure what's happening as it's happening. You realize it after things sort of wrap up.
Right.
So you watch him go about his like daily life, and he's got some tasks that I don't have in my daily life.
No.
Long story short, he is like, if you're familiar with vampire tales, you would consider Haken Ellie's familiar.
Yeah.
So he is, gathering a food source for her.
Yep.
And disposing of the waste.
Right.
And while this is happening, she's getting closer to Oscar. Ellie, that is getting closer to Oscar. Oscar's bullying continues. He relies on Ellie more for a friendship and develops a romantic interest in her.
As romantic as 12-year-olds can.
Yeah, like they have, crushes.
It's a crush.
He has a crush on Ellie, I'll say.
And I will say his home life is not great. His parents are divorced. And he seems to get along fine with his mom.
She seems to have more empathy for his situation.
Yeah. Than his dad.
But nobody's really... He doesn't trust them enough to really tell them what's going on.
Yeah,
with
he
school.
lies. Yeah.
But maybe that's a prideful thing. I really don't know. I don't know. We don't know much.
This is also set in the 80s when bullying was not taken as... I don't know how it is in Sweden, and we can talk more about that in the American version, but I know in the 80s, bullying was not taken seriously.
Not at all. Like, it was normal to be bullied.
And the teachers would just turn a blind eye or just tell you to suck it up.
And the parents would be like, well, just beat him up.
Beat him up.
Beat him up harder.
Or they would talk to the parents of the bully, which did absolutely nothing except increase the bullying.
Yeah, then you got retaliatory.
action.
So,
yeah.
And at one point, Haken, in trying to obtain a food source for Ellie, things go a little sideways, and he realizes he is going to get busted.
Yeah.
So he man, this is like really genius how they do this.
Yeah.
I feel. So he basically lets the body be found before any real fatality occurs, and in order to avoid going to the police station upon arrest, he self-harms.
Yeah.
So that he has to be taken to the hospital.
Right.
So he's taken to the hospital. Ellie locates him in the hospital and feeds off of him, and there he goes out the window.
He well, in the Swedish one, she pushes him.
It's unseen.
Okay. So, yeah. So you don't really know.
But I would not guess that she pushes him.
Yeah,
I would guess that she drains him and he doesn't really have any force,
so
strength left.
She basically kills him with the feeding and he falls out the window.
Yeah, that's how it looks.
Yeah. And he has hurt himself so much that he can't be recognized.
He can't speak.
And he can't speak.
And so, conveniently, Ellie finds herself, next door to this boy that
she needs a new familiar
that has developed a crush on her, and he asks her to go steady, which is so cute, really. Mm-hmm. And she explained to him, well, I'm not a girl, so I can't be your girlfriend. But if we can continue things as they are, then
that's fine.
Then that's fine. It'll just be you and me versus the world, and he is very happy about that. This is like the only moment of bliss we see from Oscar in the movie.
Yeah.
And then there's a field trip, an ice skating field trip at the lake, and a body has been found. Bullies.
This is one of Haken's previous.
Yeah,
attempts.
There's a gentleman in the town called Yoka, which is seems to be a beloved person in town, and everybody's like, "Who would do this to Yoka?" Well, we have the answer already. And then bullies harass Oscar.
This is the one time he stands up for himself.
Yeah, he hits their leader Connie in the head and splits his ear. Mm-hmm. And he suggests to Ellie that they form a blood bond.
Yeah.
Which
doesn't go well.
I don't think he quite understood what he was suggesting.
Well, at this point, he's not sure what she is.
No.
So
I love how there are 2 times that Ellie tells him, I am not a girl. Mm-hmm. We can't, whatever. And he just rolls with, he's like, okay. Yeah. He just completely no reaction whatsoever. No questions or anything. He's just happy to have a companion.
And he cuts himself to do this blood bond.
On the hand. And Ellie's thirsting for blood because
she doesn't have a familiar to
right.
Yeah. She's already killed one person.
So she laps that up. And then I don't understand what happens with Virginia. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, Ellie is so hungry that she kind of loses... Because up to this point, Ellie has had somebody to get her blood.
Yeah.
She hasn't had to just go out and kill somebody.
And they have to remain human so that they can do the hunting during the day.
Right. So it's not like everything happens at night. But she goes out at night and she feeds on Virginia, but she isn't able to kill her. So Virginia actually ends up turning. And she's in the hospital when she... in the Swedish version, she just opens the curtains herself. So I think Virginia realizes...
No, she asks an orderly to.
Okay, but she realizes what she is at that point.
Okay.
And so she asks the orderly to open the curtains, and she bursts into flames.
I see. So that was intentional.
That was intentional.
Okay.
Virginia, in the Swedish version, Virginia realizes what's happening to her, because she's biting herself at this point. And she just tells the orderly to open the curtains, and she just bursts into flame.
Didn't follow that exactly. Lackey tracks down Ellie in the apartment.
Lackey is Virginia's kind of boyfriend, kind of. It's a very close knit. It's a very close knit apartment complex. Let's just say that.
But he tracks down Ellie in the apartment and breaks in and sees Ellie asleep in the bathtub, and he's prepares to kill Ellie. Mm-hmm. And then Oscar interferes, and Ellie wakes up and jumps on Lackey and feeds on him and kills him. And then Ellie thanks Oscar and kisses him. And an upstairs neighbor hears the disturbance and is knocking on the ceiling. So Ellie's got the sense, okay, I can't really stay here anymore. Yeah. So the next morning, Oscar is lured out to resume the after-school fitness program at the local swimming pool. Connie is pretty pissed off about that split ear. And he's got...
And his brother is also with him.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
And they start a fire to draw Mr. Avila?
Yeah.
Avila?
It's either Avila or Avila. Yeah, it's the teacher, basically.
Yeah. So they enter the pool area and order the children, aside from Oscar, to clear out. Jimmy forces Oscar under the water, threatening to stab his eye if he does not hold his breath for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Which, who can hold their breath for 3 minutes?
You'd have to be an Olympic swimmer to do that, and Oscar is barely learning to swim.
And he's being held underwater. Ellie arrives and rescues him by dismembering the boys. Yeah. Except for Andreas, who is reluctant and sobbing on the bench. And then later we see Oscar is traveling on a train with a box.
Yep.
And Ellie taps the word kiss in Morse code in the box.
Yeah. So he is now her new companion.
And they're running away together.
Yeah.
And what I didn't say that isn't in the synopsis is that, to me, this movie is very much about loneliness.
Yeah.
And the sort of desperate things that you do to feel a sense of belonging or companionship with another person.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is about.
This one, it's set in the winter, so it's very cold. You feel cold watching this movie. There's so much snow. Because it's Sweden. And, Ellie's out there with no coat and no shoes on in the middle of winter, but she doesn't feel cold. I will say, at this point, going to the book, Ellie's not a girl. I don't think they say in either movie how old Ellie is.
They don't? No. They don't.
In the book, they explain that she's 200 and something.
Okay.
She was...
I'd hate to be 12 years old for 200 years.
They explain that she was born male, but she was castrated at 12 to be made a castrati. And
wait, they explain this in the book?
In the book. Oh. Yeah, they explain a little bit of Ellie's backstory in the book. They don't in either film.
Is Ellie castrated before
being a vampire? Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess if it were to happen after, then
it would. I don't think it would actually
regenerate.
Yeah, I don't know how it works.
Heal
vampiric, but yeah, she was castrated and then she was turned into a vampire when she was 12, and she just basically lives life as a girl because it's just easier. But they don't go into any of that.
Ellie does sort of use the defenseless, cold child, female.
When she needs to hunt herself, she very much uses the "I'm cold, I'm little,
feeble," and
can you help me? And that's. It also says in the book, and this is something I'll get into when we're talking about both films, but it says in the book that when she was turned into a vampire at 12, she also mentally stopped aging. So she's 12 years old in her brain as well.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't have considered that.
Yeah.
Because I have not read the book, I assumed that this because you kind of get a snapshot of anatomy.
Yeah.
And she tells Oscar twice that she's,
I'm not a girl.
That she's not a girl.
I'm not. Yeah. You get the feeling in both movies. They shy away from that. They don't go into that in either movie. And you get the feeling that she's saying I'm not a girl because she views herself as a monster.
Well, and I got the sense that there was a sort of a transformation in becoming a vampire that meant
she's not human.
She wasn't
anymore.
A sexual creature and therefore did not need these reproductive parts.
There is a moment in this movie though where what's his name? Hagen, her companion, before he goes off that final time when he messes up the kill and has to hurt himself, he asks her if he could spend the night with her after this one. I think he realizes that he's getting to the end of his...
Yeah, it's taken a lot out of him to capture people.
This is not a pleasant life.
He's exhausted, and it's so cold.
Yeah. So...
You could see him visibly
just tired.
Just exhausted, yeah.
So that's the Swedish version.
Okay. Next is Let Me In, the American version. And... I mean, it's a very close remake.
Pretty much.
I would call this a frame-by-frame remake.
Yeah.
Apart from
the tone.
One scene? Two scenes?
Gosh, even that. They changed the neighbor to a police officer.
Okay.
And that's basically...
You don't get the shot of
the shot of, the anatomy shot at all. It's now Owen and Ellie. And I will say these two look younger than the two in the Swedish film. To me, they looked much younger. And that could just be a perception thing.
I think it's a perception thing.
Okay.
They're 12.
Yeah.
In this version, too.
Maybe the actors just looked younger. Because Cody Smith-McPhee, he looks young no matter how old he is.
Some people are just like that.
They're just like
I'm
that.
always going to look like I'm...
But yeah, this one is pretty much the same exact story. The names are just changed. And then they
Thomas is Haken.
Yeah. They do start it with him hurting himself and then go 2 weeks previously. I don't like that.
No, me neither.
It was unnecessary.
Now I'm wondering, is it American or is it Canadian? Because it premiered at the Toronto Film Festival.
But that
doesn't necessarily mean anything.
I'm pretty sure this is an American. Matt Reeves, who recently directed The Batman, directed this one.
It's U.S.
It's U.S. Okay.
You said Matt Reeves directed both?
Yeah, he directed The Batman, and he directed this one. He directed Let Me In.
Okay. But they are different directors.
But they're different directors. Yeah, okay. It was a Swedish director for the Swedish version. I thought it was the same director. I thought it was like Funny Games, where the same director did.
Me too.
But it wasn't. Matt Reeves directed this one.
I think it's just so hard to do a frame-by-frame remake.
Yeah.
Unless you have the same director in the same set.
Right. And so this is set in New Mexico, which I've wintered in New Mexico. And I know it gets snow, but I don't think it gets this much snow. Because the scene with the outdoor skating, I was like...
It seems like a freak amount. A freak amount. But I've never been to New Mexico myself.
Are you sure you didn't want to set this in Minnesota?
Right.
So, but yeah, other than that, it's basically the same film. Mm-hmm. You just have, you have
Americanized names.
Yeah, Americanized names. You have recognizable actors. Richard Jenkins, who's wonderful in everything, plays Thomas.
Chloe Moretz.
I think this was one of her first roles.
This is the first time I saw Chloe Moretz.
Okay. And it is one of the first roles for Cody Smith-McPhee, too, who hides his Australian accent really well.
Oh, I didn't know that Cody was Australian.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I did. I didn't... Yeah. He really nails the
American
accent.
I will say the bully looked so much older than him. It's the guy from 13 Reasons Why. And to me, Scream. He was in the Scream last year.
See, now I've got an 11-year-old, and this is the age where kids start to look. Their bodies are growing at different.
They start to have crushes
rates. But not only that, it's harder to predict as an adult. It's harder to predict their age.
Their age at that point. So, yeah, it just looked like that bully looked so much older than him.
Right. Some of my daughter's friends look much older than her.
Even though they're the same age.
And they're the same age. I was surprised that the remake takes place in the 80s also.
Yeah.
Considering it was made in 2010.
I think because they wanted to keep away from any sort of cell phone.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
It's easier to set things.
To explain why there's no
you don't have
and there's no you don't capture Abby on film.
Yeah, why Owen doesn't own a cell phone and his mom doesn't call him or whatever. Like,
right.
You know.
That's
so it's easier to set things. Because nobody does anything about the bullying in this one either, even though it is obvious.
Right. It's just the parents getting caught up in their divorce and really not having the bandwidth to pay enough attention to what's going on.
So I have to ask this. Do you think this is a happy ending?
Do I?
Yeah. I do not.
Oh. It depends on the character. It's obviously a happy ending for Ellie/Abby.
Yeah.
Is it for Oscar/Owen? No.
No. Because, I mean, in both films, yes, his home life is not perfect, but I don't think he's from a home where his parents, more so in the American version, I don't think he's from a home where his parents don't care. They're just going through a divorce.
I don't even think that's the case in the Swedish version. I think that Oscar would have, opportunity and could,
he's not
make something of his life that
he's
isn't
not a
just
stupid kid.
He's not.
I think he's going through a tough few months because his parents are getting divorced, and it feels like he's not.
He feels very isolated.
Yeah,
and
he feels like they don't love him.
The byproduct of this is codependency.
Yeah,
which to me is a temporary thing and should be a temporary thing.
Give it a few months, and Oscar will be. If somebody would help him with the bullying,
exactly.
I think he would be fine. But
to forego the rest of your education.
I know. I mean, you're 12,
right?
And you're hopping on a train with this creature. And I do like the book. The book does say that Ellie has not matured mentally past 12 years old, which I think is a cheat because she's 200. So she's got to be. I can see it
being delayed, right?
Yeah,
but not.
After 200 years, you're going to learn something.
Yeah, you're going to read books.
She's obviously learning how to pick people that she can manipulate into being her companions. Because
I do remember clearly Ellie telling Oscar, "You want me to get rid of those bullies? Because I can do that for you."
Yeah. It's a very... it seems a bit deliberate, particularly in the American version. It's a bit more... She marks him, and it's like, oh, because it's obvious that... I can never remember the Swedish guy's name. Hagen/Thomas is coming to the end of his tenure as her familiar. Mm-hmm. He's making mistakes. He's leaving bodies where they can be found very easily. And in the American version, he openly admits, maybe I want to get caught. And that...
this
so
is a hard life.
Yeah.
And you have to be so tired of doing it.
Yeah.
That for that long. We don't know how long Haken was Ellie's familiar.
Well,
but the beauty of this, the way this movie, the plot goes in a cycle, so you can very easily extrapolate, okay, well, Oscar's the next Hagen.
Yeah.
So this is probably how things started between those two.
In the American version, you see a picture of her and Thomas.
Yes.
And Thomas is very young.
Yeah, that's true.
She obviously goes for kids that are her age, quote unquote, to start them on that journey. It's not a happy ending. I've had people tell me, oh, it's so happy for Oscar, he's got somebody. It's like, no, he doesn't.
Oh, temporarily.
He doesn't. He has a very... If he's not good at what he does, he has a very short life ahead of him.
And we already know that he is meek. He does not have muscular strength.
Yeah.
He does not have popularity.
And maybe...
He does not have charisma. So, like, how
maybe
is
that's
Oscar...
what she looks for, because he's so unassuming. But at the same time, it's like, he's going to have to learn very quickly.
Yeah. Very quickly.
Yeah. Because, I mean, at 12...
He learns Morse code very quickly.
At 12, he's going to have to start killing for her.
I know.
So, now, I do know there were stories written that take place after the book. And the book ends with somebody actually seeing Oscar and Ellie at the train station where they stopped, and they're holding hands and they're just sitting on her trunk talking, because it's nighttime. But there are stories that take place after where it's assumed that Oscar was turned, but then I'm like, well, that doesn't quite work, because then they have to find an adult to actually feed both of them. Because this is not... They're young enough that they can't really do anything on their own.
Yes, he cannot find employment.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe take up dog sitting.
What is he going to do? I mean, he's going to have to become a thief or something.
Yeah, right.
I'm assuming Ellie has some sort of money stacked up somewhere, because she's 200. She's obviously been doing this a long time. So there has to be some sort of funds available.
I disagree, because even though she's not cold, you would know after 200 years to put some socks and shoes on those feet, or you're going to alert the people in the hospital.
And she's wearing the same clothes that she wears at the beginning of the film weeks later.
I got a very haggard...
Yeah. And this isn't like a nice... This isn't a nice apartment complex in either movie.
No.
It's obviously low rent. So it's either they don't want to bring attention to themselves.
I think that's it, because you have a
it.
12-year-old there that's not going to school.
Yeah.
So in an affluent neighborhood, somebody's
going to be like, "What's going on there?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not. This is not a happy ending for Oscar / Owen. This is.
No, I would.
And I think that was my problem with the American version, is that it was shot, and the music suggests that this is romantic, and it's not romantic. As a matter of fact,
it's codependent.
Yeah, the Swedish film is called a romantic horror film, and I'm like, no. If you look at the Wikipedia page, it describes both films as romantic horror films.
And that's what, when I rented something called Let the Right One In, and it said romantic thriller, I was like, oh, okay, so this is about picking your partner carefully.
Yeah.
Right? This is the subtext I got. And I'm like, oh, there's a body being drained of its blood right there.
Yeah.
I think I'm getting the horror aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, this is not... I kind of have issues with classifying either of these films as romances, not just because... I mean, Oscar Owen is 12. He's not having a romance here.
No, but honestly, even if they were 25, this wouldn't be a romance. This would be codependency.
Yeah, because
it is what it is, and that's not a genre of film. But you don't have to use the word romance at all. You just say
I wouldn't
vampire horror.
I kind of have issues with them using the word romance in both of these for both of these films. But the way the American version is shot, and the way the music kind of swells at certain points, I'm like, ooh, you're
tone it down. Tone it down.
You kind of tone this down a little bit. The Swedish version doesn't go that hard on the romance, even though, I mean, it's obvious that Ellie / Abby is the one she has chosen, because after she kills Thomas, she immediately goes and breaks into his room. Mm-hmm. And, she curls up in bed naked next to him. And it's like
on a cold night, like what impression is this going to leave?
Is leaving this 12-year-old. So it's calculated on her part, and this
was a day after or 2 days after the offer to do something about the bullies.
Yeah. So I will say the CGI in the American version is terrible. Too. There's some bad CGI. There's some bad CGI in that. When she attacks somebody in a tunnel, it goes cartoony.
Yeah. It goes Reminds me of like The Frighteners.
Yeah.
Do you remember The Frighteners?
Yeah, and that was a comedy. So there are moments in Let Me In where I was like, oh, that's some bad CGI. And granted, it's 2010, but at the same time, Lord of the Rings was 10 years old at that point.
Yeah, but somebody made a decision for Abby to be able to move that quickly.
Yeah.
And that's what they
That's
the
did.
issue with the CGI, in my opinion.
The Swedish version, they actually kind of sped up the film. So it's
kept in shadow.
It's kept very much in shadow.
Both times, but I don't feel that there... Would you say there's CGI? Well, there is CGI in the first one.
It's very minimal.
There's CGI where there has to be
Where there has to be. In the American remake, they use CGI a couple of times when it's not really necessary.
Yeah.
The fire in the hospital was terrible. So that kind of drew me out of the film. But I was this was the first time I had seen the American remake. I really like the Swedish film. This is the first time I've seen the American remake. And
were you intentionally avoiding the...
Kind of.
Because you already liked the original
because
so much.
I liked
and
the original, and I was like, I don't want them to screw it up.
You shouldn't be hosting Refried scenes.
Screwed it up. I don't think they screwed it up completely, but there were moments where they were dragging me out of the movie.
Yeah.
And there were moments as an adult looking at these two children going, you're crossing a line with the romantic music swelling and the way you're framing these two kids is kind of a Romeo-Juliet type thing, and I'm just not buying it. So, yeah, my choice is the Swedish film.
As to which one you like better.
Yeah.
The first time, when I watched these movies for the first time, which was years ago, probably 2010, because I watched both back to back.
Oh.
And this was before beginning a family for me. And now I watched these both, well, I want to say back to back, but really it took me about 3 days to get through the first one just because of my scheduling. And then I watched the second one all together. And again, I have an 11-year-old, and so I just have a completely different perspective.
It changes your perspective.
It really changes your perspective.
I don't have kids, but my perspective was changed just knowing your daughter.
Yeah, and you're close with her.
Yeah,
it's not just a kid you know.
Okay, if some strange boy was coming up to her in the playground and saying,
I feel like I would notice some signs.
Yeah.
Even in turmoil. Even going through some things. Sure, there'd be things I'd miss.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's obvious that Oscar Owen's mom is distracted and is not noticing things with her kid.
Yeah. And that's hard for me to just get past.
Yeah.
Let alone the teachers.
Yeah, the teachers are just ignoring everything. Oh my God.
And the hospital staff. I'm sorry. Some barefoot kid comes in here with wet feet from presumably snow.
Yeah.
Of course, because it's so cold. And she just says, oh, poor thing.
Yeah.
Poor thing. Get the fuck off
and
of your
she's asking about
desk.
her dad, who the police just brought in and
for a violent
crime. You wouldn't be taking your eyes off this child. You would be like, okay, why don't you come?
Let me get your warm blanket and a hot cocoa.
And then you'd be calling the police officer.
Officers.
Or you'd be telling a nurse, call, I'm going to keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just...
And maybe this is an 80s thing again.
Yeah. Because I do know that in the 80s...
there was a lot of things I did unsupervised.
Yeah. Same here.
I mean, I went to school, I'd get off of the bus, and I might not be home till 7:30.
Yeah.
And then my parents would go, you missed dinner. Oh, that's fine, I ate. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, I mean, we survived it, but some kids didn't.
Right.
So there's a reason why you put strict rules on things now. And,
absolutely.
Those people was like, well, I was fine when, my parents threw me out of the house at 9:00 in the morning and I wasn't expected back till 7. It's like, that was wrong of your parents. It really was.
Absolutely. I am not saying that we should go back to that whatsoever. I'm just saying that for me, seeing it watching these movies a second time at a different stage in my life, these are the things that I focused on.
Yeah.
Whereas the first time I watched it was very much about the beauty of like the cinematography.
Yeah.
And
both films are beautifully shot.
Beautifully shot. The slowness really gives you that loneliness, and I've been lonely. They capture that very well, and I think that's hard to do. So I was just, I can appreciate the artistry as far as that goes. I prefer the original. Being a frame-by-frame remake, it's just so close.
Yeah.
But the music and the effects are where we lose points in the remake. Yeah. For me. And
it's just, to me...
And the end scene, though, I very much enjoy both versions of... not the end scene, the climax.
The climax in the swimming pool. The swimming pool scene is well done in both versions. Yes. Although in the American remake, she doesn't leave anybody alive. She does in the Swedish one, but she kills everybody in the American remake. And that teacher is just so stupid. That teacher is so stupid. Oh my God! There's a fire outside. You know exactly what these boys are up to. What is your problem?
I don't feel like the teacher any of my daughter's teachers would immediately catch wise.
Yeah, particularly after he had watched, at the ice skating rink scene or the ice skating scene where he's watching Oscar and the three bullies accosting him right before Oscar smacks one of them. He's watching them, and he realizes what's happening, and then they find the body, and he's drawn away, but he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So, that teacher was just dumb. But, so I think we're both saying the Swedish version is better.
Are you saying that there's a big difference, or is there just a minute difference for you? I don't think there's a big difference.
To me, it was an easy choice to make. One, because I just felt the CGI was unnecessary and was really bad in the American version. But also because I just was not liking the way this was framed as a romance. And it's more the way it's filmed in the American version than the Swedish one. So
there's more light.
Yeah. It's not a bad remake by any stretch of the imagination, but it was an easy choice for me to make and say, I like the Swedish one better. So...
Cool.
So, there you go.
Let us know which one you guys like more.
Yes, you do have to read the Swedish version, but it's well worth it.
Very well worth it. And it's on Prime.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. And then Let Me In is on HBO, if you want to watch that one as well.
I'm sure all these Paprikans have all the streaming services.
So for the next Refried scenes, we're going to go back to one that we were going to do, and then we found we couldn't find a version, but then we found a version.
Now we have relocated.
We have located the 1940 version of Rebecca, so we are going to do Rebecca. And that's going to be one where I'm going to bring the book into it as well. So, because that book is actually in my top 10 favorite books. I like that book a lot.
I've only seen the remake of that.
So, so this will be interesting. So, 1940 Rebecca, and I think 2021 is when Netflix came out with the remake.
Gosh, that seems so recent.
It does seem so recent.
2020 or 2021.
Yeah, prior to Armie Hammer's downfall. So.
But not far.
But not far before that. So next time we'll do Rebecca, and this is Carol.
This is Mia.
And we are signing off.
Thank you for listening.